Sometimes you just need to turn off the distractions, get to work, and find the universal truths that affect us all and that govern our universe. This is a good place to do that. Mark Fults and Kat Hobson will try to help with that a bit by bringing fantastic guests. Let's see what's happening tonight.
Hello, everybody. This is Teal Gray, and I am going to be interviewing Jeannie Van Hoose tonight. And we're coming to you live from Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB radio. Jeannie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Teal and Kat and Mark. Thank you so much for having me on. And this is such a pleasure and an honor.
Well, I tell you what, I'm the one honored. I'm just such a fan of yours. And, you know, we're we're going through so many different stages of weather all around the globe. I don't know, Jeannie, if you're having all this ice and snow.
Yes, we are. In Texarkana, we are having it as well, but not quite as bad as you. But they canceled school today, but I believe we're going back tomorrow.
Oh, got you. Well, enjoy, every minute that you can have at home. Now, Jeannie, I just for everybody listening, because you have so many amazing attributes and you've made so many interesting travels, and I love your team. So you're all teachers, and guys, I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been doing these shows for years and been a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium, all my life. And I've never known a more professional, put together team. And I've also never known one that was all teachers. So tell us a little bit about your team and about you. And then I'm going to just question you and get all of those great stories out of you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we are school teachers. That is correct. But we have added another member to our team, and that is Debbie Adam Gullett, and she is a nurse. And
teachers and nurses, and I know Debbie. She's wonderful.
Yes, and so we have 3 teachers on the team and 1 nurse. And
nice.
So, yes, we're professionals in our professional life, our work life, but we are also paranormal investigators as well, because we all have a common thread, which put us all together because of that. But the team that is consisted of school teachers, we are elementary and middle school teachers. Melissa Estes teaches social studies in Fouke, Arkansas, and Nancy Eves is a teacher at North Heights Elementary in Texarkana, Arkansas, and I am currently a middle school teacher in Texarkana, Arkansas at Arkansas Middle School.
Nice. Well, I tell you, I think that is really a wonderful way to kind of come at the paranormal, because it's a little bit of a different viewpoint. You guys are all schooled in different, areas of teaching. And so I think it gives you just a really unique kind of aspect at looking at things, and I always love when people have the training that you do, you almost have to sense your students, don't you? Like you have to know to read a room and, how to adjust to everything. And so I think that's something helpful in the paranormal.
Yes. And for our audience who's listening and joined in, and I appreciate you and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have also discovered that schools are haunted. And we have all been in classrooms that had paranormal activity. And we had to be very careful with our students because we don't tell our students that we are paranormal investigators. They're young and we don't know what their background is like, and we don't know how their parents feel about the paranormal. So we don't share that aspect of our lives.
Right.
But we have had activity in the classroom, and we have to be especially careful with how we explain to our children why unusual things happen in the room that cannot be explained.
And now, so I've got to ask you some things that have happened. You got to tell us some of those stories.
Yeah, I will. I had a chart, one of those charts that you can move up and down. Mm-hmm. And I got tired of the chart staying up real high all the time. So I just decided to just lower it all the way to the base. So I lowered it to the base. And I'm sitting in there with my students, and my students are working very quietly. It's independent work now, and they're working quietly on their own. And I suddenly hear a noise, and it sounded like a chair flipped over or something. And I looked over my class, and everything seemed to be normal, but I noticed that the students were all looking at me, and I said, well, I don't know what that noise was. I said, is everybody okay out there? And they said, yes. And I said, did a chair fall over or did something fall? No, ma'am, nothing fell. I said, oh, okay. Well, then I guess maybe it came from another classroom. Maybe it knocked the wall or something. And then it did it again. And then the kid said, no, Miss Van Hoose, that didn't come from another room. That came from in here. And I said, well, that's unusual. I said, well, you know what? I said, you never know with all these classrooms around here. I said, you just never can pinpoint where these noises come from with all these students in the classroom. And I said, so we're just going to move on. And if it makes that noise again, we're just going to ignore it. And so it didn't make the noise again. The students left. And I had my prep period the next period. And so I knew what was going on. I am a sensitive and an empath. And I sensed something in the room. And so I took my phone and I said out loud with only I was in there. And I said, I heard that, and you got my attention as well as my students, and I would like for you to do that again now that I'm in here by myself. And so I turned my phone, the video on my phone, I turned it on, and I pointed it to the side of the room where the noise was coming from, and it was by that chart, that whole paper. And I held the phone there for probably a good 10, 15 minutes. And that chart lifted itself up and threw itself down. And I have it on videotape.
Oh my goodness, Jeannie, that's amazing. And we can put, we can add things to Facebook for you, and you can send us links, and we can put those up with links, to the show and to your evidence. I think that's amazing.
I would love to share
Wow.
it because it is awesome video. Another
Yeah.
thing that happened was I had 3 students in the classroom, and it was a study hall. And because of COVID, they were all separated, and I had chairs sitting on top of tables to separate them. And I'd say, don't take these chairs down because
Yeah.
because of COVID, we have to keep our distance from one another. So wherever you see a chair sitting on a table, don't sit there. Leave those chairs up and sit at the chairs that are down where you can sit. So I had these 3 students in there, and they were making up a test, and I was just sitting at my desk, and I was watching them, and I was working on something as well. And we heard this crashing sound, and we all jumped. And I jumped up from my chair because it sounded like something came through the room. And when I looked up, one of those chairs that I had placed up on top of the table flew across the room and landed in the
Wow.
middle of the floor.
Oh my goodness.
And the student closest to that chair, her eyes were as big as saucers.
That they were.
She looked at me and she said, "I didn't do that, Mrs. Van Hoose. I didn't do it." And I said, "What on earth happened?" And she said, "We were all sitting here quietly on our Chromebooks doing our makeup work." And she said, "I heard this rattling noise on the table. The table was vibrating." And she said, "I looked over and the chair was vibrating." And she said,
Wow.
and the next thing I knew, it shot off the table into the middle of the floor. And she's looking at me, and the other girls are there. They are just quiet. Their eyes are huge. They're not saying a word. They look scared out of their minds.
Yeah.
And they're wanting an explanation from me. And I walked over and investigated. There was no way that chair could have fallen off the table because it had sat there all day.
Yeah.
And they had not gotten near it. And the student wanted to know why it vibrated before it shot off the table. And again, my teacher mode came in, and I said, "Well, sweetheart, you never know. There could be something. They could be working on the building. Sometimes there's bad plumbing. There's, air
wild excuses, but good ones. Solid chances.
Yes. So I blamed it on the school's air conditioning, plumbing, that sort of thing. And I said, and that when it's breaking down, it can vibrate. And it can make things fall off the table." And they
flying
didn't
across
buy
the
it.
room. Yeah, because they're like,
Yes,
I mean,
they didn't
it
buy
flew
it.
across the room.
Yes, and they
But
said,
listen,
"Why did it
like you
fly?"
said, you have to
Yes.
stay in that mode and that zone of appropriateness for what you can say,
Yes.
and it's a
Yes.
difficult spot to be in, but you handled
And
it well.
well, yeah, and it's very difficult because this is something about us being paranormal investigators that we cannot disclose or ever discuss with our students.
Right.
Another one, and I'll share one more with you, but I'm not going to mention any names. But we had a dear principal who unfortunately died suddenly of a heart attack as she was getting up and getting dressed to come to school. And she was, we loved her very, very much. And she was the sweetest principal and very caring. And she loved her teachers and her students. And so it was such a devastating loss for our school for her to pass the way she did. And the rest of the year finished, and we got a new principal. We didn't think anything of it. And there was a friend of mine who was teaching in a classroom, and she came to me, and she knew I was a paranormal investigator, and she said, Jeannie, I had something happen in my room, and I don't know what to say about it. I don't know how to explain it. And I said, well, what happened? She said, well, I had students in there. And she said, and they were working quietly, and I was at my desk working on my computer. And she said, as clear as a bell, we heard a woman, and she sounded just like our principal who died. And she said out loud, where the whole class heard it, I'll get back with you on that. A
Wow.
whole sentence. And
Oh,
she
my
said
goodness.
everybody looked up expecting to see somebody walk in the room. And nobody was in the room. Nothing happened. No one was around. And they had no idea where that voice came from. And that is something that this principal would say to us whenever she couldn't give us an answer for something right away.
That was her thing. I'll get back with you.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, Jeannie, that is so interesting. I mean, and you know, we're going to have to go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you more about those experiences. And that is just amazing. That is amazing. For everybody to hear that and for everything to come through that clearly, that is really something.
And for it to be a whole sentence, I'll get back with you on that.
Yes.
And the teacher knew that that's what the principal always said, and she knew she had passed, and it couldn't have been her. And she came to me right after that class, and she looked white as a sheet, and she said, you are not going to believe what happened to me, and I wanted to come to you right away and tell you this.
Oh, my gosh. Well, everybody listening, hang on to your seats because I am. We're going to have to take a break for a commercial, but we'll be back in just a couple minutes with Jeannie Van Hoose and more stories. We'll be right back, everybody.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of. A bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Hello, everybody. This is Teal Gray. Welcome back. We are coming to you live out of Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB radio. We are speaking with Jeannie Van Hoose, and she has a team called Inspectors that is all teachers and now also has a nurse on board. So we've been talking to Jeannie about some experiences that she's had, amazing ones, my gosh, at school with many people seeing and hearing these things. So I want to dive back into that, Jeannie.
Okay.
And I think that is amazing when, you have, you don't even have to worry about the EVP. I mean, you have auditory happening
Yes.
in the same tonnage as the deceased principal, and everybody heard that, and that was a saying everybody was familiar with. I'll get back to you on
Yes.
that had to just be astonishing, because I know you've got many years and lots of amazing evidence, but
Yes.
sometimes things are just, that's so rare for that to happen.
Right. Well, I thought when she told me about it, my first clue was it had to be residual, because it was like an imprint in the environment, because she spent so much time in that school and she loved this school, and I just assumed. I didn't get the feeling that she's there. I got the feeling that it was residual, that it was just like an old film that was repeating itself.
That's kind of
caught. Yeah, that's kind of caught in the environment.
Well, do you think that it could have been her, or do you think that was somebody different that flipped the chair off across the room, and also the first thing, I'm thinking, I can see it in my head, but now I can't think of the word.
The chart. Yes. Well, I did a private investigation by myself in that room, since it was my classroom, and I got a teenage boy, and the teenage boy was a student that had been in trouble quite often, was always placed in what we call today ISS, in school suspension, and he was bitter and upset, and now this was an old school building. And I learned that a student had died on the ground. Now, I don't know if it was him, but
trying to get your attention, or
yes, and but he came through, and he was angry, and I think that the reason he came to me was because I'm a teacher. And he was used to that type of environment, and he was wanting to communicate with me. And I have been told I cannot see auras, but I do have friends like you and others that can see auras and have other psychic abilities and gifts, and and I don't have those gifts. Like I said, I'm a sensitive and an empath, but I have been told that I have an aura around me, and that it's pretty bright, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
beacon. It's like a
Yeah.
beacon, and it draws spirits to you, which is the reason why so many of them come to me and want to communicate with me, and some of them will show themselves to me.
Well,
And
and
I think,
your aura also tells, that your temperament, it tells your personality, it tells what's going on at the moment as well. So you having such a welcoming, loving and open aura, one thing
Mhm.
that you have to be careful about that, as you know, because you are empathic, but having that, it does send that beacon out, and then gosh, they're going to come to it. It's just going to flow.
Well, Teal, and you knowing me, and you know my team, when we conduct an investigation, and we have done, we have gone to HHNL, History, Haunts, and Legends,
Yes.
with Jody Breckenridge, and we've also done private investigations. Every time, it doesn't matter where we are and how many people are with us, we always tell everyone that the way we approach spirit is as if they were still alive today.
Mm-hmm.
And that we always approach them with the utmost respect and kindness, and we never provoke.
Right.
You would not provoke a person in life. Why would you provoke them in spirit?
That's right. And
we
they
have
keep their
found
personalities as well,
Exactly. And I don't want anyone to be mean and hateful and confrontational to me.
Right.
And I know that spirits don't want that either. And I
No.
know that people, when they are confronted with somebody that's coming across in that kind of a way, kind of like a bullying way, and they're confronting them.
It is a
They
bullying tactic.
it is. They get angry, and I believe spirits do too.
Sure.
And we have found that with our compassion and our love for the spirit world, we get more communication and more activity than you would believe. And I have always told anybody that's on a tour with us, and this is their first time, and sometimes they're skeptics and they don't believe, and I tell them, I'm not here to convince you or make you believe, because this has to be your experience. You have to wait till it happens to you. And but you're here, and let me show you how to approach it, and you will have so much more success if you are sweet and kind and compassionate and loving, and open yourself up and let them know it's okay to come to them. It's okay for them to come to you, because you're not there to mock them or exploit them. You're not there to put on a show.
It's an exchange of energy and a hope to discover something that is beyond our knowledge into, the other side. And it's their chance and opportunity sometimes to reach out and get messages and to just be heard, just to be seen. And it's a special thing. And I think you're 100% the way you guys do it is so beautiful, because as you say, just in life, when you're gentle, when you're loving, when you're open and you're authentic. Now that's something else, because there's so many people that aren't, and you guys certainly are. But when you're authentic, it's readable, and certainly to the other side, that's all coming from energy. They can see your energy. They know everything about you and what you're putting forth. And so they can feel, oh, this is safe. This is a safe space. This is a safe situation. I can open myself up, because they have fears. They have a lot going on the other side. And I think that's just a must have,
Yes.
And
now go ahead, Jill.
No.
Well, we have investigated places where there have been suicides, murders, very tragic incidents. And that's where you really have to be careful, and you have to be sensitive, and you have to be open and aware of what happened to them, and tell them how much you feel for them and how much you're so sorry that that happened, and that you wish that things had turned out differently. And but we love you and we care about you, and we just want you to know that we want to know your story, and we want to remember you. We don't want you to be known as the person who committed suicide, or you were the person
because there's so much between, as they say, the dash, the birth and the death. And I never like, even in life, to paint people with such go for the broad stroke if you have to go for anything, because when you get into the minutia of this or that, or, one person has a slip, like they've had a wonderful life, they're a wonderful person, and maybe they had one slip or something happened and it drove them to this or that. Well, that whole life should not be, read or subjected to just, like you said, one situation. And I think it's so sad when that happens. And I'm so thankful that you don't do that, and you celebrate the person and their life and what message they're trying to get through, instead of being stuck on the situation that put them on the other side.
Right. Well, we did an investigation at the Magnolias in Jefferson, Texas, and a beautiful, beautiful home, and owned by Teresa Ponder, who is one of my very, very best friends. And we discovered that in this house, which was pre-Civil War, and it really does have such a rich history, and it is extremely active, and the families of those past families are still there. And there is one family member who did commit suicide, and he is very bitter. And when we approach him, he let us know he didn't like women. He let us know that he was angry. And the way we approached him and talked to him, it made all the difference in the world, because we told him not all women are this way. And we're so sorry that this happened, and that you felt that the only way that you could resolve this or be pain-free was to do what you did. And, but we know that you really in life, you had a wonderful life, and you had people who loved you and cared about you. And yes, we all have something that happens to us that's bad. And, we're not happy about it, but it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
Everybody's got something. Nobody has a perfect life.
Right.
And
I
so
think it's just sometimes they can't see a way out, and that in that moment they can't see past that pain with that person. Yeah. But that's such a unique way to handle it. And I think it goes back again. And a nurse being on the team would be the same vibe as the teachers, in that kindness, that openness, and the way you deal with people, because you're having to, go from zero, not knowing them, to having, an amazing interactions with them, and or healings, and or whatever. And to do that, you have to have a very quick pace to trust, and you certainly have gotten that down. So I'm glad about that.
Having Debbie on the team, being an emergency room nurse, and she is quite remarkable. And she, when we discovered about the suicide, we learned that the gentleman that committed suicide had syphilis. And because of Debbie's background, she knew exactly what syphilis does to the brain. And she was able to talk to him about that. And it seemed to calm him down. And
because he felt understood. And that's one thing that so many people and spirits don't get, is understanding.
Exactly. And that's what I try, and my team and I try to tell people who have discovered that they have gifts, or they've got an interest in the spirit world. We try to explain to them that you need to approach this with compassion and kindness, and don't go in and provoke just to get a reaction, because some people will go in and they want to confront, and they want to automatically, they want something quick. And they think that
I have an opinion about that, and it might not be popular, and that I don't care. But my thought is that people that go in without trying anything else, they just come in and they want to, I want to be a badass, I want to provoke, as if they think that makes them one. It actually makes them, to me, very simplistic in their thinking and abilities, because you should never have to do that to get to where you need to go. I think of it kind of in writing, and you being a teacher, I think of it as people that can have just explicit, cuss words and stuff, just like a flow, but they can't make any other common sense out of, sentence put together. And I think to myself, that's showing so much about the person, and so, volumes that they don't understand. Like, if you think, and if you can't put together a proper sentence, that says something about it. And I think it's the same way with this provoking. They just come from a different point, because everything's made up again of energy. And so they're coming from this, to me, low level, angry, sort of aggressive energy. And if you've always got your fists up, you're going to get a fight, right? And so they have all, if they get anything at all, because some spirits are just like, I'm going to leave. But if they get anything at all, they're going to have negative experiences. They're going to have the shock jock value, maybe, but not anything really of essence, where you get these volumes and volumes of interactions and answers to your questions. And it's like this story that weaves itself together from these bits and pieces into this, wonderful bits of sometimes history, even depending on the place. And that's where these people come to life once again, and you get to have this interaction, and it becomes this story, this tale that is a real thing, rather than a lot of cursing and slamming and screaming, and then they run. And I think, what is with this? Why are you screaming and running? Because where did you think you were going to do? What's happening here? And I kind of put that all in the trash pile, but you just bring a lot of integrity to the paranormal, and I so appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, and I'm very proud of my team, and we're all of the same mind. And I can honestly tell you that of all the years that we have done this, we have never encountered anything demonic. And I hear that all the time about, be careful, there's demons out there, and, it might be
they are more rare than a lightning strike. Believe me, there are many levels of energy, light and dark, but you go through a whole lot of levels before you get to the D word. But that's shock value, and that's what they're looking for. Now we have to, Jeannie, I can't believe the time is passing so quickly. We have to go to a break once again. And when we come back, we're going to have Mark Fults join us for the chat. So everybody stay with us, and we're going to keep talking to Jeannie Van Hoose.
Thank you.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Hello, everybody. This is Teal Gray. Welcome back. We're coming to you live from Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB radio. Now, Jeannie Van Hoose, we have been speaking to her, and she is part of the team Inspectors, which is made up of teachers. I think that's so interesting. And now they have been joined by a nurse as well. So I think that gives a great perspective. Now, Jeannie, you didn't get to finish your thought. So I want to let you have your floor again and finish your thought. We had to go to break so quick.
Well, what I was saying is we're very fortunate, my team and I, that we have not encountered demonic activity. But that's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just that we've never encountered it, and I just thank God for that. And
Yes.
And so because to tell you the honest truth, I really wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't know what to do. We would probably just turn it completely off and say, you're not welcomed here. We're not here to talk to you. You need to go away. And we shut it down.
I had to do that at a jail investigation that I was, they had me come in as the psychic medium to go around with, the guests and everybody and the team. And, we were getting a lot of stuff. And then when we went upstairs, of course, it's like the old jail and the, museum kind of thing downstairs.
Right.
And then we went upstairs to where the cells were. They were upstairs. And that turned from getting a lot of, stuff collected and interaction. Yeah. But then we went to the kind of the deepest part of the jail, and this was in Granbury, and it was hosted by Susan Hill and Jamie Mose. And
I love them.
They're wonderful. And so we were there, and we had all kinds of equipment going. And then I was like, now listen, guys, something else is here, and it's darker, so then all the equipment started going crazy, and it was getting very aggressive, and it was talking, and it was growling, talking at us. And then when I would say, no, we're going to shut that off, and then go take that outside and cleanse it, then it would just pop in through something else. So we ended up, I said, this is not my place to shut this down, and you guys can do whatever you want to do. But this, I'm telling you, and I'm very, very rare, less than on my hand I could count, that it's actually been what I felt was a higher intelligence entity of the lower dark energy. And I felt like this actually was demonic and very strong, very powerful. And a lot of seasoned people that were there were like, like, oh my God, they never, encountered that. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to continue to interact with it. And I said, I think everybody just needs to make their own decision. You've got a lot of people here that have, been here for a few hours, and we've had a great investigation. So I'm going to leave that to y'all as to whether you carry on with it or not, but you need to know what I believe it is. And it kept representing itself also after that. Like it, answer, was it? Yeah, and the whole thing, we're that kind of bit. And nobody wanted, they were like, no, but what do we do? And I said, well, we go immediately, we close this down. And, I closed it down, closed it out. And I said, and we're all going to go now and cleanse ourselves and cleanse our equipment. And they're like, oh, we just kind of smudge, and everybody goes on. I said, you have to cleanse everything, your bags, everything that you took in with you has to then be cleansed, because everything, like lift up your feet when you do something, and because you've got, every bit has to be cleansed from that, or you're carrying bits of it right into your house, right into your vehicle, and people think, gosh, I went somewhere and now weird things happening. Wonder why? Because you took it from the graveyard, you took it from the location right on you, as you got to think about it as a sticky germ, right into your place, and you're bringing it into people who might not be interested in this like you are. You're bringing it into your family and to children, and possibly, and pets, and it can wreak havoc for sure. Now
I agree.
Let me see, it is I want to bring in Mark Fults here so he can join our conversation. Mark, are you with us?
Ooh, yeah.
I think that's him. I think that's his ghostly saying yes.
I feel like the ghost out here, kind of just listening to everybody.
Well, then you've heard Jeannie is an amazing guest, and so Jeannie, I want to go back to that. You and I have a shared experience at Hill House, where Toby, who I do believe is a demon, but I kind of like Toby. I think that he represented himself to me, very full form, and actually in a terrifyingly attractive way, and but he introduced himself immediately with a 7 in front of him. And so I knew that because, I've been through seminary, I'm an ordained minister, not that you have to be one. It's just something that I was used to, the knowledge was kind of put into me. But when a spirit, or something dark, a demon has been exercised or tried to, but it failed, then they come back with 6 more worse than them. So they're sevenfold now. It's called a 7-fold infestation. So I knew that at some point somebody had a failed attempt to, eject him. And so he just came back. And with that, you don't have just the original Toby. You have 6 others that are stronger and darker, and their emotions are very bipolar. So, you have something way worse than you ever had to start with. And so I think that what he showed me, while yes, it was a demon, there was a lot of complexity to him. Really, there's quite a story to him. That I agree. That's not just your textbook, thing, or the thing that they put in the B movies, but that now, within him, inside of him, and working, he's not going to be able to rid himself of it, is 6 others, right? With all their own stuff going on. So that has amped up, the activity there to just astonishing heights. And I'm going to tell on myself and Jamie Mose, because I lecture everybody and on cleansing and like how important it is, and don't get so busy that you forgot this or you forgot that, and what happened? Okay, so I got set up for this, but still you have to take responsibility. So Jamie and I were about to cleanse and do everything, and I'm telling you, every disruption that could happen at that moment happened.
I agree.
So
I
we got in the car because Jamie said, Jamie's like, oh, I have to be somewhere. And she did. She had a certain time frame. And so we had, it was a big thing to get on the road. And so we jumped in the car quickly, told everybody, kind of put out all the fires and told everybody we just have to leave. So we got in the car and we didn't make it but a few miles down the road, and my phone started growling and talking, and I thought, well, now that's odd, let me plug it in because maybe it's going down. It wasn't my first thought that the demon came with us, right? And then it started coming through the radio. It started it was making itself very well known, and wanting to be recognized as who it was. And I said, oh my gosh, what we didn't do is we didn't cleanse everything. And we pulled into a church. I said, there's a church right down here. So Jamie pulled in. I had my spray, that's my special spray that I make. And we stopped, sprayed ourselves, the soles of our feet, sprayed the car, sprayed the tires, sprayed all the equipment, the trunk, everything. Everything got sprayed. And or somebody wants to say smudged. The difference is sometimes I have a spray that I make that handles this, because not everybody can have the smoke of a smudge stick because the allergies, asthma, different things like that. And also in certain public places, you can't just light something up and go to town. But I make other things, potpourri you can carry in bags, like a little bit like a totem, and they help, clears it out. And then immediately he was gone and he was back where he needed to be. But I want to turn it over to you and talk about your experience, because you had him and your team follow you home.
Yes. And he also growled on our phone. We had a team member whose phone did not operate the same way. And she would be in the middle of a conversation with her husband, and she would hear growling in the background. And she would ask her husband, did you just growl at me? And he said, no, why would I do that? And she said, well, did you hear that? And he said, no. And she heard it loud and clear, but she heard it on her end. He didn't hear it on his end. She ended up having to get rid of her phone because she could not get rid of it. She could not. We did everything. We saged the phone. We put holy water on the phone. Debbie did all kinds of other things with it that she had her other potions that she used that she tried, and it didn't work. And so she finally just disposed of the phone, got a new one, and now her phone's working fine.
Yeah.
But Toby, when my team and I went to Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, Texas, owned by Kathy and Sunny Estes, very sweet people, love them.
I love them.
I do. I love them, and they're just as sweet as they can be, and always welcome us to their house.
They are the greatest hosts, and for everybody, if you haven't been to Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, you absolutely have to make the trip, because they have brought that house back to such a beauty, and there's so much history there. It's amazing. Even Sam Bassett's gold, they're looking for it there. That was on the History Channel. The people that do the search for treasure on Oak Island have come out to Haunted Hill House, and that was just on, I think it was the last week. So there's a lot to look out for there. And I wrote a book, of course, about Haunted Hill House.
Put me in it, and I am so thrilled. Thank you. And the story that happened to my team and I at Haunted Hill House is in your book, and so we're very thankful, and we're very honored that you included us in your book. And for
Oh,
those of
well,
you listening, it's Haunted Hill House by Teal Gray. You can get it on Amazon. It is worth the read. I promise you. There are other stories, other accounts of other paranormal investigators, like Jamie and Susan Hill and Martha Hazard, and there's so many in there that give an account of what happened to them, and you need to buy this book and read it. It is worth having a copy of it.
Thank you so much. And your husband actually I've had people who had things happen as they were reading this book where they would have feelings of something being near, and your husband actually had a physical manifestation while reading the book, and he hadn't got to the part yet, but he was just coming up to the part where I said I was having these crazy things happen, spiritual warfare, when I was writing that book, and especially as I was getting towards the ending of it, and it would feel like, because nothing would stop me, I would just pray it away and chase it away. And then it started to make when I would start to write. And if I'd stop, it would stop. But it would make my fingers feel like, it was needles and knives in my hands.
Exactly.
And Jeannie's husband was reading the book and enjoying it. And thankfully, because he used to be, he was in publications or something. So I was like, well, if he's reading on into it, then that's a good sign. But right before he got to the part where I was having those sensations, he started to have those sensations, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And this was before you and I talked about this. In fact, I told you what happened, and you were so shocked. You said, "Oh my goodness, I had the same experience."
Yes.
But I took my husband is in a nursing home. He unfortunately lost a leg to COVID, and so he's been in there for over a year now. And I took the book, Haunted Hill House by Teal Gray. I took the book. I was so proud of it, and I took a copy to him, and I told him, I said, you need to read this. I said, my team's and my story is in it, and I said, you need to read this. And he says, oh, well, I'll look forward to it. And when I first met my husband, he was a skeptic, but he's no longer. And he said, yes, let me read it. And so I just left it, and I left him and went on about my business. And I get a phone call, and he says, you're not going to believe this. And he says, call me crazy if you want. He says, but I had a weird experience reading the book. And I said, what do you mean a weird experience? I said, what, did a ghost appear or something? He said, no. He says, I was reading the book, and I was holding it in my hand. And he said, and I started feeling like my fingers had needles pricking them.
Yeah. Yes.
And he said, and it felt like I was being pricked by needles all over my fingers as I was holding the book. And he said, and it scared me so bad that I had to put the book down.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Phil, are you sure it wasn't your medication or something that you took that you were allergic to? He said, no. He said, I put the book down and I waited. And he said, I waited till the next day, and then I picked the book up to finish it, and it did the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I'm coming over there. So I went over to the nursing home, and I said, where's the book? He had put the book in a drawer. And I said, why did you put the book in the drawer? And he says, because I don't know what's going on, but I'm having weird stuff happen to me as I try to read this book. I said, Bill, get the book out and let's look at it. And he got the book out, and I said, now hold it. I said, just hold the book and you'll be fine. I said, and just get your mind off of it and get through it. I said, I promise you'll get through it. And he said, okay, but just give me time. Just give me time. He says, I don't want to do it right now, but just give me time. And I said, okay. So I left. Then he called me the next day and he said, I got through the book.
Good.
And I said, okay. I said, where's the book? In the drawer. And he said, I want you to come and get it.
Yeah.
And I said, why? And he says, I just want you to come and get it. And so I went back up to the nursing home and I removed the book. And I have the book here at the house with me. Now, I read the book cover to cover and never had anything happen, not a thing. I have had friends that I gave copies of the book to, and they did not have a physical experience, but they got scared.
Yeah.
And they put the book down and didn't want to finish it because it scared them.
And also the image on the back, I put an image on the back of what Toby looks like to me. And people around the world that are reading it, and I've done it in 3 languages. It's in Hindi, Spanish, and English. And so that there's a lot of fans of Haunted Hill House, of multilingual. And so I wanted to try to make it as inclusive as possible. But the image on the back scares people so much that they're taping over it or putting pieces of paper over it, taping it down so they don't see it so that they can try to read the book. But it is a phenomenon with that book, and I haven't had that with any of the other ones I've written. Only on Haunted Hill House, Darkness Resides in Texas, and of course by Teal Gray. And it is causing these hauntings and manifestations, sometimes physically, to happen. But we got to go to break, guys. When we come back, we'll dive right back into here. Hang on with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Live from NPR News, I'm Jack Speer. The U.S. is accusing Russia of planning to stage attacks in eastern Ukraine to justify an invasion. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports the U.S. is trying to deter the Russians by making the information public.
State Department spokesperson Ned Price says the Russians are working on a propaganda video with crisis actors and graphic scenes of destruction. He's talking about this U.S. intelligence publicly, he says, to try to deter Russia from trying to use that or any other false flag operation to justify an invasion.
In the event we're not able to do that, in the event the Russians do go ahead with this, to make it clear as day, to lay bare the fact that this has always been an attempt on the part of the Russian Federation to fabricate a pretext.
Russia accuses the West of whipping up hysteria over Ukraine. The U.S. says it's up to Russia to de-escalate and pull back troops. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
A winter storm that is dumping ice and snow across a wide section of the country is also hitting the northern and eastern part of Texas. But unlike a year ago, the state's electric grid has held up. From Dallas, NPR's Wade Goodwin has more.
The storm that is crossing Texas is a mere fraction of the historically powerful winter event that hit the state a year ago. Then, when the temperatures first plunged, the state's unprepared electrical infrastructure collapsed, leaving more than 4.5 million customers without power for days. This time around, the number of customers who lost power numbered in the tens of thousands, not millions, and the temperature will begin returning to normal by the weekend. Wade Goodwin, NPR News, Dallas.
President Biden outlined his administration's strategy on dealing with surging gun violence during an address today at the headquarters of the nation's largest police force. Visit by the president to the New York Police Department and a violence interruption program at a school in Queens comes as illegal guns flood the streets and shootings claim scores of lives, including those of police officers. Biden is seeking to push back against critics who claim he is soft on crime. A tough day on Wall Street. The NASDAQ fell by 3.7%, dragged down by Facebook's parent company Meta. As David Gura reports, shares of the social media company ended the day down 26%.
In its latest earnings report, Meta said it did worse than expected in the last quarter of 2021. And with the drop in both advertising and the number of daily active users, its profits are under pressure in the months ahead. The company lost more than $200 billion in market value on Thursday. That's the largest one-day loss for a U.S. company ever. The NASDAQ hadn't had a day this bad in almost a year and a half. The The Dow and the S&P also fell. The losses come after markets had gained for 4 consecutive days. It's been a volatile start to the year as the Federal Reserve gears up to raise interest rates. David Gura, NPR News, New York.
The Dow was down 518 points. This is NPR. A new study by scientists at Princeton and MIT finds extreme flooding from hurricanes will be more than 100 times more common by the end of the century in some parts of the U.S. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports it indicates the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic are most at risk.
Scientists say climate change is causing hurricanes to dump more rain, and sea level rise exacerbates storm surge during hurricanes. The new study examines storms with both extreme rainfall and extreme storm surge. Such hurricanes have historically been rare, but the researchers found that over the next 80 years, such catastrophic storms will get much more common. The biggest increase in risk is in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. In the past, people living in coastal communities in those regions were very unlikely to experience extreme compound flooding from rain and ocean water. In the future, the likelihood increases by more than 100-fold, meaning it is very likely people will experience such a storm over the course of a lifetime. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
3 fishermen who clung to debris in the frigid waters off the coast of Massachusetts may have a sharp-eyed woman to thank for saving their lives. She apparently spotted the men from the shore, the only person to call 911. The 55-foot long fishing boat Bing Bing apparently went down so fast the crew didn't even have time to put on survival suits or make a distress call. Pam Hart says she saw the boats from the shore and told a local paper she figured others had also called authorities, but it turns out she was the only one. Crude oil futures prices closed higher, up above $90 a barrel. This is NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Comcast Business. Internet now with Security Edge to help protect every device on your network, so you can be ready for what's next. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. Security Edge requires Comcast Business Internet.
Hello, everybody. This is Teal Gray. Welcome back. We are coming to you live from Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB. And Jeannie, I want to go right back into what we were speaking about, Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells. It's owned by, I just love them, Kathy and Sonny Estes. And I know you love them too. And so, we were talking about Toby and your experiences. And so I want to turn that right back over to you.
Okay. Well, my team and I called Kathy and Sonny, and we had heard all about Haunted Hill House and its reputation, and we were extremely curious about it, and we wanted to experience this. And so we made plans and we went, and we have been there about 3 times. And we heard about Toby and many of the other spirits that they have in the house. And but Toby was the one that intrigued us the most. And we were told that he was a demon and that we needed to beware of him. So we went in with an open mind, and we went in not to search for him or to call him out or bring attention to ourselves. We just decided that we were going to go in just like regular people and go in and have a good time at Haunted Hill House and not go and seek him in particular. And so while we were there, he started showing up. And he started speaking to us. And Kathy and Sonny, they have video cameras all over the house, except for the bathrooms, thankfully. And they are capturing everything that happens in that house. Nothing goes by without being caught. It's going to get caught. And Melissa, one of my team members, and I, we were in the room that they called the hatchet room.
The axe room. Yes.
The axe room.
That's the room I spent the night in. Mm-hmm.
That's the one we stayed in. And Kathy and Sonny caught something that looked so creepy, and it's on camera, and they got it on tape, getting in the bed with us. And we could not make out what it was, but you can see it's got a little head. It looks almost gremlin-like.
Yeah.
And it moved the covers down at the foot of the bed, and you can see it crawling under the covers and getting in the bed with us.
No, that's amazing too, that they have the way they have all the cameras going all the time, because you can catch things that sometimes, even as investigators, if you're setting up, things will happen before you get your cameras going or whatever, and that's just a wonderful resource to have, to where it catches that.
Right. And you never know your reaction to something like this until you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, you could see that we were sound asleep. There was no movement from either one of us. And you see the covers raise up, and you see that little body burrowing under the covers and going up towards us. It was so off-putting. It almost made me sick to my stomach when I saw that. I just couldn't believe my eyes to think that something like that got in the bed with us, and neither one of us were aware of it.
That is how they creep in to every little aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't need to be sleeping there. No.
Right. Now, the other room that has all the dolls hanging off the ceiling and all over the place.
The carousel room.
And there's a carousel that you're not supposed to touch. You're not even supposed to go over and touch it. And we didn't touch it. Well, two of our other teammates stayed in that room. And it was a bed with a trundle bed. And a trundle bed is a bed that slides out from under the main bed like a drawer. And it's got a mattress, and they lay down on it. And then when they're done sleeping, they push it back under to conserve.
It's kind of like the most compact bunk bed you've ever seen.
Exactly. Well, my other two members were sleeping there. The bed was perfectly fine. The lady who was laying on the top bunk, in the middle of the night, that bed broke completely down on top of the other investigator on the trundle bed.
Oh.
And nobody could explain why that happened. It happened in the middle of the night. We heard the crashing noise. We all jumped up and ran in there, and how that bed broke and moved across like it did on top of the trundle bed, we will never know.
Yeah.
We could not figure it out. But it was something that was angry enough to
It was
to
a purposeful,
Yes. So we had many experiences in there. And then when we finished, we were there for 2 nights, and we were done. We were fine. They told us about Toby. We even got Toby a few times on our EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. And we didn't think anything of it. We thought, oh, wow, that's cool. We got Toby. Okay. So we leave. And we didn't cleanse ourselves. Like you said, we completely forgot. And we left there. And I kid you not, for the next year, Toby followed us everywhere we went. Toby would be on all our EVPs, on other investigations in other locations, and Toby would come through. And he had nothing to do with those locations. And whenever we would say, tell us your name, who are you? We would like for you to communicate. And you would hear this creepy little voice. Oh, it was horrible. Creepy little, like that.
Yes.
And he said, Toby.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, you do such a good impersonation. I guess you heard it for a year, so I mean, I guess that that makes it so. But yes, that's him. That's him. And I mean, he's very powerful. He really is.
Yes, he is
and
very powerful.
for your whole team to be infested for a year, that takes quite a toll. You all have Toby PTSD at this point. But yeah,
Yes,
and I
we
talk
do.
about some of the phenomenon about that and explain that in one of the end chapters in my book for people who don't really understand how does this work, how does this happen, how do they infest. And so you get in my book, you get the stories, you get the history of the house, and then you also get some explanations, and then you get some ways to handle if you do have a problem. So it's all in.
Exactly. And let me also tell you too, Teal, that not only did we hear his voice through EVPs, we would see things with his name on it.
Oh,
we
wow.
would, yes, and Toby is not a very common name.
No.
And we would be driving down the road, going to an investigation, and we would see a sign that said Toby. We would see a billboard, and we would see Toby.
Wow.
We would open up our phones and open up Facebook and have a message from Toby. And none of us had a friend named Toby.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this frightened us. It scared us.
Rightfully it should. It should, because that's one thing I want to touch on just really quick, Jeannie, is because people think, oh, well, that should be all blasé if you're investigators. And I say, no, because if you've actually experienced these things, they're real. It's terrifying, and it never changes from that. And it's a respect thing, and that's what you're saying. You got to respect it. And so you finally, in a year's time, you got away from it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what we did. We never talked to him. Whenever he would come up on EVPs and other locations, we wouldn't acknowledge him. And we even got where we would never said his name. We would, if we would say, I think that was T. That was our code word. We'd say, I heard T. Yeah, I heard him too. Did you see that? Did you see that word? It said T. Yeah. So we made a pact that we would not say that word. We would say T instead. Because we felt like if we continued to say his name, we felt like he would hear it and hear us say it.
For sure.
And that's why we stopped. And after a year, he just kind of faded away. And now we don't ever see him. We don't hear of him. We don't see the name Toby anymore. Now that I've mentioned his name several times on this radio
we'll have
program.
to cleanse ourselves after this and the phones.
Yeah.
And
I'm
sorry to do it to you, but we have to take another break. So when we come back, we'll pick it up again, guys. Stick with us.
Okay. Thank you.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everybody. This is Teal Gray, and I am speaking to Jeannie Van Hoose, and we are coming to you live from Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB. Now, Jeannie, you were talking about your experiences at Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, and about the book I wrote on that. And you also had experiences, you were about to say, in the Scratcher Room.
Yes. My team and I were in there by ourselves, and we were doing an EVP. Kathy and Sunny had the room set up with all kinds of trigger objects, and so we were using some of there's a card table with all kinds of things to play cards, and so we were sitting at the table, and we were calling on Scratcher. And to let the audience know, beware when you do this, because you will get him. And he did come to us, and he scratched one of our teammates, and it was a pretty deep cut. And she was just sitting at the table. We all had our hands on the table. We were just sitting there, and we were trying to get an EVP. We were trying to call on any spirit in the Scratcher Room that would come out and talk to us. And suddenly we heard her scream, and she pulled back the chair from the table, and she had a long scratch on her leg. And she said her leg was burning, and she was wearing long pants, and she got up and she went to the bathroom to check, and sure enough, she had a scratch, and it was pretty deep, and she got that through her jeans. She was wearing her jeans. Now, had that been her own nail, or let's say there was something under the table that scratched her leg that was on the table, it wouldn't have done that without tearing the jeans.
Right. Yeah. And you also would have been able to feel it immediately when you went to check.
Exactly. And she felt this burning sensation, and she got up and went to the bathroom, and that's when she discovered it, and we saw it. And that's another thing that the audience needs to know is sometimes when you're ghost hunting, some of these ghosts will scratch you. And leave a mark on you. I have been scratched before, and the way I handle it is I tell them, you do not have permission to touch me, and you just hurt me, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. Now, if you want to cooperate and be nice, then I will continue to communicate with you, but if you're going to treat me this way, then we have nothing more to say to you.
That's a great way.
Yeah, and we shut it down because we're not going to sit there and let a spirit scratch us and pull our hair and abuse us that way. And
No.
and we're not going to be scared, and we're not going to run from it either, because that many times that's what they want you to do. They want you to get scared. They want you to run out of the room screaming, and that is not the way to handle it.
Not at
You
all.
have
One,
to-
you're giving them more energy to work on, for one thing, and they think it's hilarious. And you're right. It's just a no-go. That is a no-go.
Exactly. And so that's what we have decided to do. As scary as it may seem, you do not get up and leave the room and run. You sit there and you don't chastise them either like you would a bad kid. You say in a firm voice and be in control, and you say, "You have no permission to touch me."
Yeah, because you got to
You are
remember,
not-
you are always in control.
That's right. You are always in control. You are the one that can tell the spirit how you feel and what you're wanting to do in way of communicating with them.
Yeah,
that is,
because you have to control the situation, or the situation, spirit, whatever entity is there is going to control you, and that is where people get into trouble, and it follows them home, and it's endless. And so I'm so glad that you approach it in such a way. And also, I got to touch on one of your favorite subjects, and mine, because I wrote Shades of Angels, is your guardian angels. So and Mark Fults, after Jeannie tells her stories, I want to get into you and your mother also had some great guardian angel stories.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I know many of you in the audience have probably had experiences with guardian angels, and some of you may not have ever had any experiences, and you may be a little skeptical about it. But I have had 2 near-death experiences where I should not be here today. And I'm here because of a guardian angel. I probably would not have believed it had it not happened to me. And because it did, I'm a firm believer of guardian angels. We all have them, and they watch over us and they protect us. And this happened to me when I was a teenager, and I was living in Darmstadt, Germany. My father was in the military, and we were stationed over there. My mother was a school teacher, and there wasn't a whole lot for teenagers to do on an Army base except go to the movie theater on the base. So I had met a lot of other military brats, as we were referred to. And we had all formed a friendship and became very good friends. And we would always go to the movies, and we would take a shortcut through the woods, and we would pass over a train track, and it was a trolley train track. And this was in a section where the trolley could pick up a lot of speed because there were no stops in between. So these trolleys would probably go at about 60, 70 miles per hour at this one location. Well, we had done this 100 times, stood on the trolley track after leaving the woods from the path from the movie theater, and we would stand there and wait for a break in the traffic in order to get to the housing area. And so we're standing there and we're waiting for a break in the traffic, and we're just playing around like teenagers do, horsing around, kicking and laughing and poking at each other and not paying any attention. And suddenly we heard a horn, and it was a loud, deafening sound. And I was in the middle of the track, and the rest of them were further over. not quite in the middle, but I was in the middle. And I turned to look to see what that noise was. And I was blinded by a huge light from the train. It was that close to me. I froze. I completely froze. I could not move. And I'm standing there looking at this light that's blinding me. And I am frozen and with fear, and I can't move. Plus, there was no way possible that I could have humanly moved fast enough without getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
I was picked up and I was put over to the side between the traffic and the train, where there was just a small section of concrete. And I was held, and this person held me from my back and bent me over and held me. And the train passed by, and it was cold. It was it was during the winter. I had a heavy coat on. I could feel the train whipping my coat as it went by.
Oh,
I
gosh.
looked up and I could see the lights on in the train with the people sitting in there, and their faces looked blurred. I could see the heavy traffic on the other side of the road, and it was lots of traffic like a freeway. And I could see the lights of the cars, and they were blurry. And it was like where I was, time stood still. And I felt this peace come over me, and I wasn't afraid. And as soon as the train passed by, I was released, and I could hear screaming and crying. And I looked, and all of my friends who had been standing there with me thought that I had been hit and that I had died. And they were screaming and crying. And then when they saw me, they couldn't believe their eyes. And they came rushing to me, and they said, well, how did this happen? How did you get off the train track? You were right in the middle of it. You didn't have time to move. What happened? I said, somebody picked me up, and I was picked up off the ground and moved that quickly, and somebody held me. And they said, who was it? I said, I don't know. But my intuition told me it was a man. And I told him, I said, that's all I know is that I think it was a man. And I couldn't explain who that man was, where he came from, how he did that. We had no idea how that was physically possible to do. And now that I'm older, and I have thought about that many, many times, I have relived it in my memory many, many times. And I now think that the man who saved my life was my deceased grandfather.
Watching over you.
He was watching over me, and he was the one who picked me up and moved me to the side of the road. And that was the only way that could have happened. No human could have done that for me. No human. And
I'm glad they did. You're here today for that, and you're here for a purpose. If you weren't here for supposed to still be here, you wouldn't be.
That's exactly right. And then I had another experience just this past summer. A friend of mine, and who is also a teacher, she told me about floating the Caddo River and how much fun it would be. And I said, I've never floated the Caddo River before. In fact, I've never floated, period. I don't even know what that's all about. And she said, oh, well, come on and let me take you, and I'll show you what it's all about. So we go to a place in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and they were closed. and there was a sign that said closed due to high waters. And I said, I looked at her, I said, what does that mean? And she says, well, sometimes the water, because of bad weather, the water will rise and it's unsafe. And I said, oh. And I said, well, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And she says, but the waters look calm. And it doesn't look bad at all. And she says, let's see if we can find another place. So we found another place, also in Arkansas. And when we got there, there were two men running it. And they said, we're not letting the floats go out because of the high waters. And I said, well, what is it about the high waters? And they said, oh, it just means that it can be a rough ride. He said, but instead of doing the floats, we will let you rent a canoe. And I said, okay, I've never done that before either. And I said, do the waters get high? You said they get high. Well, do they get high enough where you can drown? Because I can't swim. And they said, well, we have life jackets. So I said, well, I would prefer to have a life jacket. And my friend Holly said, yeah, I'll take one too. And we should have gotten a clue when we were the only ones out there. And there wasn't anyone at that place renting a canoe. Yeah. So we get in the canoe. They push us off. I've never done this before. They gave me an oar, and she had an oar, and we started down the Caddo River. And at the moment, it was very calm and peaceful, and the sun was out, and I was just enjoying it so much. And then we came up to a rapid, and I had never experienced that. And Holly said, be real careful with the rapids because the water's running really fast and quickly. And, you know, if you're not careful, we could overturn the canoe. And she said, keep your oar in the water and make sure you keep it where we stay upright. Oh. And so we did that. We made it through the first rapids. I told her, I said, that was not fun. I was not expecting that. And I said, that was scary. I hope we don't have to do that again. And so we traveled on down again, and we came up to another one. Now, this time, the clouds had darkened. The weather was looking kind of grim. The wind was blowing. The water was whipping and flowing very quickly. And I suddenly felt fear. And I said, what are we going to do? I said, we had a hard enough time going through that rapids and cold and warm, calm water. I said, now this is even worse. And she said, we'll be fine. And as we approached it, I saw some other people on the bank, and they were watching us. And I thought, that's odd. I wonder why they're just standing there watching us. And as we went through the rapids, we flipped. Oh. We lost control of the canoe, and we flipped. And we were underwater. I was completely, I had no idea what was up or down. Mm-hmm. But because I had the life jacket, I floated up and popped up out of the water.
Thank God.
I was, and the waves threw me into a tree trunk that had fallen across in the river. It was a dead tree that had fallen, and there was this tree trunk, and the waves slammed me into that tree trunk, and the canoe came up behind me and sandwiched me in and kept thrusting my back and throwing me into this tree trunk. And I'm holding on for dear life, and the tree trunk has slippery slime on it, and I'm having a hard time holding on. And if I lose my grip, the
You're
current
gone.
will push me under this tree trunk where there were other branches. I would have gotten caught under those branches. It would have caught my life jacket, and I would have been I would be under the water, not being able to get up, and I would have drowned.
Yeah, because
So
it's so strong. Yeah, it's so
Yes.
strong. You couldn't have fought it.
Yes, and I now have the fear of God in me, and I am on the verge of tears. And for the first time, I'm feeling like I'm not going to make it, and I'm going to drown. I really felt I was going to drown, and I'm screaming, and I'm asking people to help me. Well, they couldn't get to me because of where I was in the water. And the current was so heavy that nobody else wanted to take a chance and get caught in the current and get swept away too. And they're trying to find a way to help me. And this canoe kept slamming into my back, and it was hurting me because it was ramming my chest up against that tree trunk.
Yeah.
And I was in pain, and I was hurting. And I turned around, and I'm begging for help. And I said, I don't want to drown. Somebody, please help me. Please help me. And all of a sudden, there was this girl, and she was in the rapids behind the canoe, on the back of the canoe. And I saw her, and she never looked at me. I saw her profile, and she never looked at me. And I said, can you help me? I said, please get this canoe off of me. I am in such pain. And I said, and it's hurting me, and I'm so afraid. And all she said was, I'm going to get the canoe off of you. But she never would look at me.
That's
I only
interesting.
saw her profile.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, her face looked a little kind of blurry. And I thought it was my eyes. I thought because I was scared and I had water all over me, I was thinking, it's my eyes playing tricks on me or something. And she moved the canoe off of me. And
which takes strength. I mean, those canoes are very heavy, and then the current is pushing it.
Yes. And here's the thing. She was floating just fine in the current. It wasn't moving her. It wasn't jostling her around. She was perfectly calm in the water. And how she moved that big, heavy canoe off of me, I will never know to this day. And she moved that canoe off of me. And I was no longer being hit and pushed up against that tree trunk. So when she got it off of me, I was now focusing on two teenage boys who had managed to climb on top of the tree trunk, and they were going to take my hands and they were going to pull me up. We worked for like 30 minutes trying to get me up on that tree trunk and keep me from drowning. And they finally got me up, and I said, "Where is that girl?" And they said, "What girl?" I said, "The girl that was out in the Caddo River that got the canoe off of me," because there were people all over the bank. And I said, "Where is she?" And they said, "Well, we didn't see any girl." I said, "You didn't see the girl that moved the canoe off of me?" And they said, "No." And they asked some other people, "Did y'all see a girl move the canoe off of her?" And nobody saw the girl. And I was worried about her because I thought she may have gotten caught in the current and drowned. That's why I was so worried about her. And I said, "Where did she go? We've got to find her. She might be under the water. She's out in this water too." And everybody just kind of looked at me, and I think they thought maybe because of this traumatic experience,
the hysteria.
And they ignored me. They finally stopped ignoring me, and started ignoring me because I kept insisting on this girl. And so when they finally got me out and they finally got Holly out of the water, we were able to get back to where we rented. And when I got to those men, I was not very happy. And I told them, I said, I want you to know that my friend and I nearly drowned today. And I said, this was a horrible experience. And I said, and if the waters were too high and people were not supposed to be on the water today because of bad weather coming in, you should have closed this down and you should not have allowed us to get on a canoe.
Right.
And they said, well, we're sorry, but we didn't know that weather like this comes up unexpectedly. And, they had some excuse.
Sure.
And I said, well, I just want you to know that I nearly lost my life. And I said, Holly got swept around down the river and got pulled up by some men that were down there and able to grab her by her life jacket. I said, but I was in the worst spot. And I said, I was holding on for dear life to a tree that had fallen in the river. And I said, and my canoe was hurting me and bouncing back on me. And I said, and the only reason that I was able to get out of that dilemma is that a woman got in the water and pulled the canoe off of me. And they said, a woman got in there with you and saved you? And I said, well, yeah. I said, I don't know how she did it. And this funny look came over this one guy's face, and he waited for the other guy to leave because the other guy said he was going to go down there and find my canoe at that spot. And so it was just this guy and me. And I said, why are you looking so funny? He says, I wasn't going to tell you this. He says, but in that exact same place where you were, he said, we had a drowning 2 years ago.
Oh.
And I said, what? And he said, yes, a high school girl who was on her senior trip was in a canoe that flipped over, and she died she drowned in that exact spot where you were by that tree.
And she saved you. Oh my gosh, I have chills.
And that girl that saved me, and I get choked up. I get real choked up when I tell the story because it was her.
Yeah.
She saved my life. And so I later Googled that accident to find out about it, and there was a picture of the girl, and it was her.
Oh my goodness, Jeannie.
Yeah, and when I saw that, I got chills all over me, and I just started bawling. I just started crying my eyes out, and I called my friend Teresa Ponder that night because she told me Teresa Ponder has gifts, and she told me that she didn't think it was a good idea that I went on the trip. And she said, Jeannie, I had a bad feeling when you told me you were going. And she said, I wanted to stop you, but I knew you wouldn't listen to me. You would go anyway. Yeah. And she said, but I already knew something bad was going to happen. And I told her the story, and I could barely get to the story without crying. And then when we saw the picture of the girl, it was her. It was, and she had long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she was kind of a little heavy set. And like I said, the only thing I saw was her profile. Oh, wow. But it was her. It was her. And she saved my life, Jill.
That is so amazing. I just can't believe, oh God, well, thank God she did, but what an amazing, amazing story. We've got to go to break. But when we come back, we'll jump in again and talk to you, Mark, and then we'll run over time probably a little bit because I want everybody to be able to know how to reach you and keep up with you, Jeannie. So we'll be right back, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
You're listening to WBHM, Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Hello, this is Teal Gray coming to you live from Birmingham, Alabama on WBHM-DB. Oh my goodness, Jeannie, what an amazing and yet harrowing story of and to have, your guardian angel, you be able to track that literally to a person that drowned in that spot. I couldn't help but put the connection, she's a high school student on her trip and you're a teacher and just, oh my goodness, you are definitely meant to be here.
Well, I'm very blessed. I am very blessed, and I hope that my two stories will be helpful to the audience, and that you have guardian angels watching over you. Mm-hmm. They are watching you day and night, and they are there for you. And if it's not your time to go, they're going to save you. And they're going to keep you around. If God keeps you around here on earth, he's got something for you to do. You've got a mission in life. And I feel that my mission is to tell people about guardian angels. I really do believe
that. I love that. Well, the follow-up to my Shades of Angels is coming out soon, so I'm going to have to beg you to go into that one and be in that book too.
I would be honored, Teal.
I would love that because it really focuses on that. Wonderful. Now, Mark, tell us your guardian angel story.
Okay. Well, I'm almost 60 now, but when I was 30, I was attacked in a random act of violence. Just some people wanted to see someone die. And when I went to the hospital, they couldn't get me to turn around. Finally, they just put me in a room to let me die. And they quit feeding me. They did the whole thing. They just let you go. And I started going into, the near-death experience, the first real close near-death experience. And a friend had brought some balloons for me and tied them to the foot of my bed. And they were what they call jewel tone. I don't even know if you can get them now because of I haven't seen balloons in forever. But they were very shiny and bright and big. And when I started to feel that I was going, because I was in extreme pain, and all of a sudden I started feeling very good and couldn't figure out what was happening. And then when I looked over to my right, I could see in the reflection of the balloons, which were tied to the foot of the bed, I could see a blonde-haired lady dressed in morning clothes. And she was very depressed looking, and she had her hands laying on my bed, where my feet were. And if you looked all the way to the right, you couldn't see her, but you could see her in the reflection. And they had brought in a machine to put medicine in, and it was during training that never go to the hospital in July, you'll die. But they brought this machine in. They had put medicine into it for me, and all of a sudden the machine started going off with an alarm. And the head nurse and the nurse who had put the medicine in, everybody came in and was trying to make it work and kept trying to make it go through. And they didn't see her. And I was watching her, and then I started having the experience of seeing, you see the lights, you see the people and the people calling to you. And you see the landscape where they're moving through the light coming towards you, calling your name. And then you start to pull out. You start to feel yourself going from your sternum. When they would call my name, I was going. And she was there to wait. I was watching her, watching that. And eventually they took the machine out because I couldn't get it to quit going off. And everything kind of paused for a minute. And I was just expecting to go ahead and die. And the head nurse brought the other nurse in and said, "You put the wrong medicine into the machine." And she said, it had his name on it. She said, "No, you put the wrong medicine in the machine. If it had worked, he'd be dead." And so when they left the room, I looked at her and the images started to kind of fade out. And I said, so I knew she was waiting for me, to go. So I thanked her for being there. And I lived that night. The next day, I started going into the next phase of getting close to dying. And I called my mother, got her to come in, sit with me, so we could talk out everything before I croaked. And I went into, my body was trying to shut down. I was just in horrible condition. And my mother was real religious, but not, she was scared of ghosts and things like that, kind of thing. And when I was very close to my near-death experience, getting ready to croak, that lady appeared. Again, I had not told my mother about it. And she appeared. She had beautiful blonde hair, had it in, my mother was going, she had it in a French braid. She was dressed like a nurse. And she was holding a little clipboard. And she stood there, smiled at my mother. And when she turned, she disappeared. And when she turned, I woke up out of what was happening to me, and I about fell out of the bed. My mother grabbed me, and when she grabbed me, the lady disappeared. And for some reason, I turned the corner. I wasn't dying anymore. And the doctors were shocked. They said, "You threw us 8 curveballs. We don't know how you're alive." But when she was there with me until it turned. And so since then, I've lived 30 more years. I've lived my life now metaphysically all this time. But I could have been dead and buried, 30 years ago. Now, I wouldn't know anybody I know right now. They wouldn't have done the story. So, but since
you also,
that's happened,
obviously, you're supposed to be here. You've got work to do.
I've got work to do.
Wow.
So, but that's my simple little story. That just turned the corner and here I am.
Well, we're glad you are. Gosh, that's a good story. Well, now, Jeannie, everybody's going to want to keep up with you now. They can read about you in my books, but how else can they keep up with you and your team?
I'd love for everybody to go to our page, the Inspectors Paranormal Team on Facebook. And you can message us, or you can message me personally there. And my team and I will do private investigations if you think you've got something in your home, and sometimes you want that to be private and you don't want people to know. And we certainly don't disclose any of that information. It's nonprofit. We want to help, and if you need our team to come out and help you, we would be more than happy to. So all you have to do is go to the Inspectors Paranormal Team, and Inspectors is spelled capital I, small n, capital S, small P-E-C-T-E-R with an S. So the Spectre is spelled, it's another word for ghost. So it's inspectors, not like the inspectors that go on, and inspect crimes and stuff. This is spectre spelled as another word for ghost.
I love that. And I will put, when I repost tonight, I'll put a post out and send the direct link for this show. And I'll make sure and put a link for the Inspectors Facebook page, and for the Haunted Hill House book that I wrote that Jeannie's in. And Mark, let us know how we can reach you.
You can reach me at the Live and Let Live Metaphysical Store in Pensacola. Also, you can reach me on Facebook under Chattanooga Chills, or just Mark Fults, and you can see my videos under Mark Fults on YouTube and my books on Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, it's been such a treasure to speak with you guys tonight. I love it. And thank you for everybody listening around the world. That I appreciate your time and the exchange of energy that you spent to listen. And you really were rewarded tonight. Thank you so much, Jeannie. You're just, it was amazing to speak with you. I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that you're still here, and your stories are just amazing. And so I know people are going to want to follow you on Facebook and be able to check out everything that you've done and doing. And I just want to really quick, though, there was a question that I always want to ask, because that's the thing the fans always want to know, is what is your favorite place you've investigated, and what's on the bucket list?
Let's see. My favorite place that I have investigated is Old Washington, Arkansas, right outside of Hope, Arkansas. It is a state park, and it is open to the public. I have very good friends who work there in the park. They are park rangers, and we are their team. And every year they have what is called Old Washington After Dark, and it's for Halloween. And you get to go in the houses and do investigations. And all the houses are pre-Civil War and Civil War houses that are still in the same state back when they existed, when first built during the Civil War. And that has to be my all-time favorite place. I have contacted so many spirits there that follow us, that know us, like Juliet at the Old Pioneer Cemetery, and Ike, who was not murdered at the jailhouse. He was actually murdered by the sheriff and his posse, but they always said that he committed suicide and hanged himself, which was not true. And so that is my all-time favorite of all the places I've been. And on my bucket list, I believe the place that I would love to go to is I'm thinking I would like to go overseas, and I would like to do an investigation in a castle. And any castle, it doesn't matter. I just want to go and stay the night in a castle, and I want to investigate.
Yeah. Well, I can help you with that. We could make that happen.
Would you, Teal? I want that's on my bucket list. I want to go overseas.
We'll do that. I can make that happen for you. Yeah. And then I have to take you to York because that's been a really major space for me. So, yeah, we can make that happen. We'll get that taken care of.
Thank you so much. And Teal, thank you for having me on. And it has been a real treat and a real honor. And I want to thank the audience for listening to my story. And I hope that in some way I've touched someone's life out there and made a difference.
Oh, I know you have. I know you have. And you touched me. And oh my gosh, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Jeannie. Audience, thank you. Kat Hobson, thank you. Mark Fults, thank you. Everybody have a blessed rest of your week. And you're going to have lots of things to think about, right? And when you tuck yourself in tonight, you're going to rethink about these things and you'll get right back up. So have a wonderful, blessed time. And I'll talk to you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.